The purpose of this video is to show you how to add Google Analytics to your React single page application. And the first thing you're going to need is a Google Analytics account. So I would recommend logging into your Google account first, the one that you want to associate with Google Analytics, and then go to the Google Analytics homepage. There will be a button that says either Start Measuring or Set Up for Free or something like that if you don't already have a Google Analytics account. So you can just click on that, and there's some information that's collected. It's pretty straightforward. The only thing that you want to make sure is when it asks what you want to measure, you want to choose that you want to measure for web. And yeah, as I said, everything else should be pretty much self-explanatory. And eventually, when you go through all that, you will land on a page like you see here, which is the page that has your tracking ID and the code that you would use if you were placing this in a web page by hand. So that sets up the tracking ID. The most important thing we need is the value of that tracking ID, and now we're going to see how to implement that inside of our React single page application front end. And so we are going to continue along with the project that we used for the email exercise, and we're going to modify the front end to use Google Analytics to track page views and also track significant events. And the only extra significant event in this case is when the user actually sends an email. So they fill out the form and they send an email. We want to know when they've taken that action. So that's what we're going to be tracking. And the first thing we will do is I will go to the front end folder, and we're going to have to add a couple of packages, the history package and the React GA package. So we will add those in with Yarn. And there we go. And we will have to bring those modules or those packages into our application. So for the front end, for the application component, we'll bring those modules in. So the React GA and the history module. I'm going to make another slight change here. We were using the browser router, and we are going to switch in this case to the lower level router class in this case for doing our routing. The other thing we need to do is just before we define the application component, let us initialize the React GA module. Whoops, that's not what I want. So a few things here. We set a variable with our tracking ID. So you are actually going to have to replace that with your actual Google Analytics tracking ID if you want to see the results. So I will do that now. And we initialize the module. We initialize the history module as well. So we initialize the React GA, the history module. And then on the history object that comes out, we set a listen event handler. So whenever the history changes, whenever the user browses to a new page, we use the page view method of React GA to track that change in page views. So this is where the new page views are going to be recorded by Google Analytics. So that's just initial application setup. And then the last thing we need to do is to link the router with that history object. And so we'll do that here. We'll set that property when we set up the router. And that's pretty much it. So let us rebuild the front end. There we go. And am I running the back end? The back end is still running, so let's preview it. And again, I'm going to do a hard refresh on the application here just to make sure that we get the most up-to-date front end. And then fingers crossed, if everything is working, let me just go to the analytics page, go to the home dashboard, and we'll look at the real-time overview. And let's just click through here. Oh yeah, there you go. So you can see I clicked back and forth across a couple of pages there, and that is showing as active. And so that seems to be working. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is when somebody actually lands on the send email page and sends an email, I'm not going to do it right now, but that would be another event that we would be interested in tracking. So we're definitely interested in knowing about the links somebody clicks on and from which page they go to, but we're also interested in other actions. For example, in this case, sending an email or other events like sending an email. So we want to record that as well. So we're going to make another change to the front end to allow it to do event tracking. And that is going to happen in the email form component. And we are going to have to bring in the React GA module into that component as well. So we will import it. And then let's say we're really only interested when an email gets sent successfully. So in the send email event handler, we call the backend service to actually send the email. And then it's a promise, it's going to complete at some point. And so when it does, then we can log that action. And so in the React GA module or object, there is an event class that looks a little bit like this. And that method takes an object with a number of different properties, but most importantly the category and action property. So in this case, we're going to categorize this particular action in the email category. What action is it? It's a send operation or a send event. So I'll save that. Whoops. Yeah, I'll save that change and rebuild the front end. And let's go back to the running application, go to the home page, hard refresh on the application to the email, and we'll put in an email address, send the email, it got delivered, and hopefully in the analytics, if we go to, these are the page views, if we go to the events, fingers crossed there's a record of that event as well. So category was email and the action was sent. So now those events are being tracked as well. And that's pretty much all you have to do to set up Google Analytics in conjunction with a React single page application.